Hey guys, it's me, that one YouTuber whose biggest claim to fame is a 17-second video, here to bring you some more beautiful content before I go away to college forever and never to be seen again. You know those times where you're at a restaurant or your house and you're eating something real good, something super delicious, but then you can't eat it anymore? You now have what is called leftovers. The official Oxford Languages Dictionary describes leftovers as a noun, something, especially food, remaining after the rest has been used or consumed. Ah, the beauty of leftovers. Another meal that you can eat the next day. What's not to love? Or 30 minutes later if you're like me, because you know the best way to fill that empty void in your stomach is with more food. Now, the way I see leftovers is like this. Whatever gets left over from what you make is leftovers. Here's a recent example. My mom made some delicious meatloaf and pasta for dinner. We all had our fill and ate what we wanted. Afterwards, there was still food left over, so my mom put it in some Tupperware for later. That is leftovers. However, there was a certain someone who goes by the username Pikahiri in this Discord I'm in, who believed there to be a different definition for leftovers, and this debate that took the world by storm all started with one simple statement, a single crack that broke the floodgates, kicking off this entire endeavor. I never have leftovers. Leftovers are gross. Now, leftovers being gross is entirely subjective. I personally don't mind them. If it tasted good before, it'll taste good a day later in my opinion. But that wasn't all Pika had to say. His soapbox had been set up and the crowd was assembled, and gosh darn it, they were gonna listen whether they wanted to or not. The debate had started, however, as level 5 Vaporeon had challenged Pika, and they were off to the races. Eat your food or don't make as much. Never. You make leftovers. No. Yes. With such amazing points such as yes and no, not in that order, this was going to be a debate for the ages, and with more key players such as Confused Genesis, Silvish, and Smug Looking Barrel all entering to give their 2 cents, this was starting to get interesting. Leftovers are great. I make one massive meal when I feel like cooking and don't have to cook tomorrow. Just have a sandwich then or something. I eat them forever and restore a 1/16 of my health every turn. Why not just portion things out then? Your leftovers are that extra portion. Literally cook spaghetti, put one in a tub and put it in the fridge, then put another portion on your plate to eat that. That's not leftovers, that's portioning. That's what I do. It's left over from what I made, making it leftovers. Now this is where it really starts. The statement that Pika made, arguing that if you make something and put the rest you don't eat or don't plan on eating in a separate container to store for the next day, is not leftovers, it's portioning. With Confused Genesis saying what I said at the beginning of the video, that if it's leftover from what you made, it's leftovers. However, it appears that Pika is not alone, as Silvish comes to defend Pika's argument with him. Leftovers is the stuff on your plate you never ate, and if you guys keep that, that's gross, not gonna lie. Leftovers is when you put it all on your plate, then you're done eating and there's food left, so you put your plate in the fridge. If you aren't doing that, it isn't leftovers. We have 2 completely separate definitions then. My definition is whatever you don't eat that you can't eat, that is leftover. Leftovers are literally foods that are left over on your plate. Leftovers is what's left from what I made. I clear my plate. Portioning is when you make a batch of 2 meals and specifically size them out and separate them. Like, if you eat a Sunday meal and you have some veg left, you ain't gonna stick it in the fridge and have some for dinner tomorrow, aren't ya? SMH. Who's that handsome guy at the bottom right there, who simply just reaffirms what Confused Genesis was saying with this. So this is the main issue of the argument, the definitions. Both sides have definitions different enough that they clash, resulting in this massive debate that sprawls across galaxies, dimensions, and even time. The argument now begins to change gears a bit, however, going from what is leftovers to whether leftovers are even good in the first place, with Pika using pizza delivery as an example. Leftovers is like ordering pizza, eating half the pizza, then eating the rest the next day. It's gross. What the? Why would it be gross? Because it's old food. If you can't eat it, just get a smaller portion. It tastes a lot worse after a day. Literally. It's just a day. Dude, it's not that if you leave the food in the fridge, it becomes bad. Are you leaving it out overnight or something? What is wrong with you people?
What do you mean by that?
Maybe your food isn't great, and if they're British, then that's absolutely the case, 100%. Leftovers aren't gross, just take care and preserve the food in a good manner, and it's totally fine to eat. Fridges aren't a secret time machine that stops aging, ruining food like you guys are, SMFH. Do you cook? I cook. And I portion food. Now, I want to take a moment to dissect what Pika is saying right here. Fridges aren't a secret time machine that stops aging. Yes, this is true. You leave something in the fridge for long enough, eventually it will go bad. However, refrigerating food does help to slow the growth of bacteria, and microwaving it or cooking it does kill the bacteria, making leftover food safe to eat. Now, of course, Pika believes leftovers to be gross as well, and whether he means gross as in it tastes bad, or gross simply due to it being a day or two old, I don't know, but it's an entirely subjective statement anyway, making it an invalid argument. Leftovers are not inherently gross, you just think they are. As Pika is busy trying to pass off his opinion as a fact, a few new challengers enter the fray. A username by the name of someone, literally someone, and later Lord Remian take note of Pika's argument and begins to refute his claims. I never have leftovers because leftovers are disgusting. What's the difference between portioning and putting uneaten pizza in the fridge? Portioning you haven't eaten from. Dude, if your pizza becomes bad after a day in the fridge, I'd change pizza restaurants. Lol. Pizza is bad after like 1 hour. Actually, preserving leftovers is factually more healthy and also just better. I don't know if there's any truth to this. No. You should hard change pizza places in that case. I disagree. Eating fresh food is more healthy. You need to eat real good pizza. No. You can disagree, but it's true. It isn't true. You can't say eating old food is better than eating it freshly cooked. Exactly! But you can't say it is less healthy either. You can. So I guess you go to the supermarket and buy groceries every day, if you don't trust the fridge. I said freshly cooked. There's perfectly safe ways of preserving food. Safe does not equal optimal. Change fridges, what can I say? There's a safe level of radiation. Doesn't mean radiation is good for you. That's a bit of an extreme comparison in my opinion. Look, if you don't have a proper way of preserving food, that's on you, but I managed to preserve my food in a healthy manner, lol. Leftovers is disgusting. What the heck does radiation have to do with that? And there I am once again, ya boy. Your opinion. Sheesh, you really are spoiled. Lol. Do you eat bread day one because that is fresh baked? Lol. You assume just because I don't eat leftovers, I'm spoiled. Nah, it's a cultural difference thing, not because of being spoiled. I eat what I put on my plate. At least I hope you don't throw them away in the trash bin. If it's a cultural thing, then why are you saying leftovers aren't healthy? I want you guys to remember both the question someone, again, the name someone, presents at the end of the pic, as well as remember Pika's answer to it, because it's where things kind of begin to fall apart for Pika's argument, and also symbolizes the beginning of the end, because it's day-old food, and I make extra for the next day. That is the same as keeping leftovers. That's also day-old food. No, it isn't. Read the chat. Yes, it is. Literally, I made a distinction. Yeah, but your distinction doesn't counter your own argument for why leftovers are bad. Dude, it's the same thing. So by your own logic, it's bad. They're both a day old. What's the difference? Yeah, and by your own logic, it's the same. You cook something, split into two parts, eat one of them, and put the other in the fridge. No, they aren't. I clearly differentiated the two. So, to recap, Pika states that the differences between leftovers and portioning is as follows. Now, this is established across the entire discussion at this point. 1. Leftovers are what is left over specifically on your plate. Portioning is when you make two separate meals and specifically size them out and separate them. That is his distinction. However, Pika dropped the ball when, in response to someone's question, he said that the reason leftovers aren't healthy is because it's day-old food. Portioned food is also a day old, man. Literally, if you make something one day to save for the next, it's a day old. You just contradicted yourself. You did. And now your argument is completely lost. You say leftovers are gross because it's a day old. But when you make something to specifically eat the next day, that still means it's day-old food. Your distinction doesn't change that. His definition of leftovers being something you've already touched doesn't really matter either. His own definition, might I say, not close to the official definition. Say, for example, I eat half a slice of pizza and put the rest in the fridge for tomorrow. And let's also say I make another slice of pizza specifically for tomorrow. One of them being eaten does not change the fact that they're both a day old, and it especially doesn't matter that the one pizza is half eaten when I'm the one who ate it and is going to eat it. So what if there's germs on it? They're my germs. I certainly won't die, and they're both in the same place, and they're both going to the same place. So not only, Pika, is your definition of leftovers objectively flawed, as it's not just what's left over on your plate, because having stuff left over from what you made is also leftovers, your reasoning for why leftovers is gross also applies to portioning by your own logic, because again, they're both a day old. Your distinction doesn't make a difference. It just doesn't. I'm sorry. Even with everyone in the debate realizing this and calling Pika out on it, he continues to stick to his guns, which are now broken, empty, and falling apart at the seams. Just because you did, that did being differentiating the two, doesn't mean it made sense. Well, I'm done arguing for today. Clearly someone is a little delusional. Lol, okay. Or just cook smaller portions, you know? Would mean you wouldn't need leftovers at all. Nice ad hondo. Hey, remember that term? If your own logic counters your own arguments, arguing doesn't make much sense. My arguments are consistent. Dude, I live alone and work. I know portioning very well, by the way. They are not. They are. Your only argument against leftovers were that they are a day old. I've been consistent with my distinctions. You haven't. I have. One is portioning, one is leftovers. Yeah, thanks for that. Leftovers are bad. It's like distinguishing between Magikarp and Magikarp. But your argument for why leftovers are bad applies to portioning as well, so therefore your distinction is irrelevant. You say leftovers are a day old, and you say it's unhealthy, but portioning is also saving food for the next day, meaning it's a day old. And that's where it begins to die down. Pika makes the claim that we aren't even trying to understand his side, but I think someone, Lord Remian, and even yours truly himself, understands plenty. Again, if we look back to the official Oxford Languages Dictionary, and also every other dictionary I saw on page 1 of Google, nowhere does it specify that leftovers are specifically what's on your plate. Pika, you made that up entirely. Because honestly, whether it is on your plate or in the pot or pan you use to cook the meal in, doesn't change the fact that it's leftovers. Your definition is wrong. You also contradicted yourself. You did. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. You straight up opened a flaw in your own argument by saying that leftovers are gross because they're a day old. Even though, once again, regardless of whether or not it's been touched or not, portioning food for the next day makes it a day old. But hey, I'm just a guy on the internet. What do you guys think? Is Pika right or wrong? Let me know in the comments. I've said my 2 cents. So with that all said, I'm Easily Easy, and I'll see you next time.